Hello, Lynn Watts here for Wyatt the Wonder Dog Books. And today I want to talk about creating a lesson on being your authentic self. All right, kind of big words for elementary age, but I think especially in upper grades, you could easily do that. And in fact, I've included a lesson on that in my school counselor small group guide, which I think is probably the perfect setting for talking about being your authentic self. It's probably a little bit of a kind of intimate, personal lesson to do in a whole classroom. But I think being your authentic self could go very well in a small group guide. So um, let me just talk a little bit about how you might go about doing that lesson, some of the particular parts of that lesson, and then a picture book that I think would be great to use for that. As always, in all the lessons in the book, Growing in Authenticity has the ASCA standards, objectives, and then an icebreaker because we're talking about a small group that you could do. And then there's some information about being authentic and a particular activity called I Am Enough, where a student can think about how do they think about themselves, how do they see themselves, what do they appreciate about themselves, um, and what they can do to take care of themselves. A bit of a self-compassion in there as well. And as all the lessons in my group guide, there is a journal page for students to kind of reflect on what they've learned in that lesson. So that's a small group guide. A perfect picture book to go along with that. And I think even with upper grades, picture books, can really be a way for students to really hone in on specific concepts. And this is a good one, of course. Todd Parr, one of my favorite authors, who has so many things that work well for school counselors. This one's called Be Who You Are. And what better title of a book, or what better book to read in a lesson on authenticity, being your authentic self. So he does talk about diversity, be who you are, be old, be young, be a different color. Of course, he has, I bet there's something on wearing your underwear on your head in here. I haven't gotten to that yet, but speaking the language that you speak, learn in your own way, be proud of where you're from. Talks about be your own family. So there's a lot about how we're all different, but how much we should appreciate who we really are. And here is Be Silly, and there's someone with their underwear on their head. I think he must have that in every book. So he has lots of suggestions in here. And as always, at the end, he simply sums it up in a very nice way. It doesn't matter what color you are, where you're from, or who's in your family. Everyone needs to be loved. And of course, feeling that you're enough and feeling that you're loved and loving yourself, which is his next line. Always love yourself and be who you are. So great little book to talk about being authentic. And with all of his books, I think he really sets things up well for you then to create your own book where a student fills in the blank about who they are, and perhaps which one of the statements in here they want to think about, like be part of your family, be where you're from, all this sort of thing, or even to come up with something different that they want to talk about themselves that they think really defines them in an authentic way. So a good lesson on being your authentic self, you can find that in the small group guide. And then I would recommend Todd Parr's book, Be Who You Are, as an adjunct to that to help get the message across. And as always, thanks so much for all you do to improve the lives of children. And thanks for listening.